Hey, we all know that we need auto insurance, homeowners insurance, but what kind of insurance do you need for your festival or fair? We're about to find out.
Welcome to Festival Soup, the podcast for festival, fair, and rodeo professionals. Join your host, Mike Baxter, a certified festival and event executive, as he brings you interviews from industry leaders, expert advice, and the latest updates from the world of fun-filled events. Whether you're working on a startup or managing an established, long-running event, Festival Soup has the ingredients for success.
Welcome to Festival Soup. We're glad you're here. Today we're going to be talking about insurance. I've got so my guest today is David Olivares. He's a certified festival and events executive with Caliph Insurance out of San Antonio. Good to see you, David.
Good to see you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Oh, for sure. So to get started, let's give me a little background on Caliph.
Yeah, sure. So Caliph Insurance was established in 1917. We've been specializing in the outdoor amusement and entertainment space since 1946. We first got our start in carnivals, circuses, and then kind of worked our way to festivals, fairs, theme parks, sporting events, family entertainment centers, and it's just continuously evolving. In about 2021, fast forward to 2021, we were acquired by World Insurance to kind of help them focus on curating an outdoor amusement and entertainment division. And they are now one of the top 15 brokers in the country. So World Insurance specifically is headquartered in New Jersey, but my team and myself are headquartered in San Antonio, Texas. So not too far from you. But ultimately, Caliph Insurance, we pride ourselves in being a one-stop shop for anyone in the outdoor amusement and entertainment space. And we specifically have a unique presence in the market where we have a retail division and we have a wholesale division. And this unique ability allows us to work directly with a festival or event, or work with that festival's retail agent that may reside in that little town, far, far away. So, that's a little brief overview of us.
That's great. A lot of folks, especially smaller festivals, fairs, or folks that are just getting involved in this for the first time, they may not really understand the difference between the policies that they require that you can provide and going to the neighborhood insurance agent that they've worked with in their town for years that covers auto and home and all sorts of other policies that are not really industry related here. Could you kind of fill everybody in on the importance of using someone who really knows what they're doing in this industry?
Sure. So, Mike, there's no confusion. Insurance is hard enough to comprehend by, just the lay individual, right? So imagine going from a personal lines, which is a homeowner's personal auto. That's a personal insurance agent. Okay. There's another side of it that's a commercial insurance agent that deals directly with businesses, right? Restaurants, bars, taverns, grocery stores. Then you could take it a step further, which is what we are. We're a commercial lines agent that specializes in outdoor amusement and entertainment. So again, it's already difficult as it is, but then trying to throw in the myriad of exposures for a fair, festival, or a carnival, and someone can get lost really quickly. So it's extremely important to work with someone who is knowledgeable in the industry, especially now, today's world, because unfortunately, what we are in right now is called a hard market for the insurance industry. And what that means is underwriters are being super selective on what they want to insure. Take it a step further, a lot of insurance companies are just pulling out of the in the segment or in the space completely. So if you work with an agent, an insurance agent that may not be familiar with this space, you could be insured, who knows what you're insured for, that you think you're insured for. And then you fast forward to the next year and you're in a hard market and that insurance agent says, I'm sorry, but I have nowhere to put you. Then you have to start all over again and you have to look for another agent that's going to be able to get you coverage. So we all know that everyone in the festival space has a tremendous amount of responsibility and timing is not on their side. But throw in the ball of wax where you now have to look for insurance 4 days before your event starts and start that process with somebody totally new. So that's one of the main reasons why you want to get yourself involved with somebody that's familiar with this space.
Yeah. Well, I sat through one of your, I think it was a 2-hour workshop earlier this year for the Texas Association of Fairs and Events. And, I've been in the industry for a long time, and I was still amazed at the number of policies and coverages that are out there that could be needed by a festival or a fair. So could you kind of start running us through some of the ones that we know people really, really need to have?
Yeah, so of course, and thank you for going through that 2-hour session. Just between you and I, that could go on for days. Like there's just, but anywho, that's one of the number one questions that we receive is basically how do we determine what is needed for our event? Because there are so many different coverages. And the starting point that we recommend is there's usually always going to be a contract that gives you a starting point, okay? Whether it's a venue contract, county contract, that you're going to have to sign in order to get your permit, or you're going to have to sign in order to secure that venue. So the first thing we do is we ask for the venue contract. That venue contract primarily is going to have a general liability insurance requirement. The general liability insurance is your focus of your insurance. It's going to protect you from patrons that trip and fall at your event and sue you. So that general liability is the most common insurance coverage that you would need. Take it a step further. Some contracts will require you to provide workers' compensation if you have employees. They'll also ask you to provide liquor liability if you're selling alcohol. So then, not after you go through your entire contract, you've got general liability, protects the patrons, liquor liability protects you from when you're selling alcohol and for securing that permit. You got workers' compensation that covers your employees. You then have to ask yourself, what other exposures am I susceptible to, right? The other thing is a lot of people want to transfer risk through purchasing insurance coverage to protect their budget, okay? One of these things would be an event cancellation or rain insurance policy. That's a whole nother animal that we can dive into a little bit later, but that is one thing to consider. Another thing is property insurance. Does your festival have an office? Does it own a building? Is it fairgrounds? Do you have equipment that you borrow or rent from a rental company? Are you loaned vehicles from a dealership who is sponsoring you? That particular coverage would fall under a borrowed and rented inland marine coverage. So again, I mean, you could easily go through about 8 different policies, but it's a good starting point is to start with your venue contract and then work with your insurance agent to determine exactly what you need.
Yeah. And talking about the weather insurance, I know of several festivals that did take it out, and it was very beneficial because the rains came, and one in particular was wiped out for the year and was covered. Another, the coverage it started just a few minutes before the gates opened, and that's when the deluge came. So they made enough in return on that policy to cover their first day, even with the park still opening, the festival still opening. So it was beneficial for them on that very first day as well. So that's something really important for people to consider.
Yeah, 100%. And Mike, there's two approaches to that, right? Something that we mention to people is you can either A, save for a rainy day fund, or B, you can purchase an insurance policy to transfer that risk and recoup some of that money in the event that you cannot hold your event, right? So just determines on what that particular event chooses to do. The other thing is that a lot of the times you have to decipher whether or not it's going to benefit your organization. Okay. If you have a 1-day event, and this is maybe the first time and you're throwing a whole lot of money at it, you're definitely going to want something that's going to protect you in the event that you can't have your event. Mm-hmm. If you have an event that might be 30 days in length, you can recoup 1 or 2 rainy days throughout the 30 days, and you may not need to buy a weather policy. So it just depends on your event.
Yeah. And, we both know of events that did not have coverage, and when there was an incident with the rains or whatever, they had no rainy day fund, and the event was gone. I mean, after years and years, it was gone. So, yeah. Keep that in mind.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, so we're going to get some other things. We're going to take a real quick break, and we'll be right back.
Ready to elevate your event to the next level? Partner with Certified Festival and Events Executive Mike Baxter and Texas Festival and Tourism Consulting to transform your festival or fair into an unforgettable experience. With a track record of success at renowned events like the Midland County Fair, the Texas Blueberry Festival, the McAllen Holiday Parade, the Lubbock Arts Festival, the Texas Crab Festival, and the Great Texas Mosquito Festival, Mike brings unparalleled expertise to your event planning and execution. From event evaluation and development to strategic marketing, public relations, and award-winning photography, Mike is your go-to consultant for making your event shine. Don't miss out on the opportunity to work with one of the best in the business. Mike Baxter is former chairman and longtime member of the Texas Festivals and Events Association and a member of the Texas Association of Fairs and Events. Call or text Mike Baxter today at 281-222-4775 or email mike@txfestconsultant.com. Let's make your next event a standout success.
All right, we're back with David Olivares from Caliph Insurance in San Antonio, and we're talking insurance for your festival or fair today. David, what are some other types of coverages that maybe is not the most important thing to a festival, but it's something they still should consider?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things is to evaluate your exposures. Oftentimes you may have a kid zone within your festival. Within that kid zone area, you're going to have carnival rides, you could have a petting zoo, and more important, you could have fireworks. You just have to identify where that transfer of risk is, right? Are you going to be discharging those fireworks, or are you contracting it out to a fireworks company? If you're contracting out to a fireworks company, they're going to have insurance, and they will cover any claims that may occur. Let's just say that your event is going to have a petting zoo. You're going to bring in a goat, some bunnies, that sort of thing. You're going to operate that. Well, with a petting zoo, most people don't know this, but a lot of kids, toddlers, will go in, pet animals. They'll start putting, they may not wash their hands immediately, and they will, if you have small children, put anything that they can in their mouths, right, without washing. So one of the real important coverages to encompass in your policy is E. coli coverage, specifically for petting zoos. And this is a pretty common occurrence that used to happen probably about, I'd say, the last 5 to 10 years. It's not so prevalent anymore, but it still comes up. When it comes up and it's big. It happens a lot at a lot of state fairs. Primarily is because you don't have hand washing stations, you don't have hand sanitizer to, for patrons to wash their hands after going through a petting zoo exhibit. What will happen is those patrons will become sick. Once they become sick and they think that they may have caught that sickness from your event, unfortunately, you're going to receive an attorney letter. Mm-hmm. So E. coli coverage will specifically cover claims associated with that. One of the other items is a lot of nonprofit organizations who host events heavily rely on volunteers to help produce their event, right? One of the common coverages that we offer and that many festivals like to purchase is volunteer accident coverage. Okay. Volunteers are excluded from the general liability policy because it's first party. We can't sue ourselves. It only covers patrons. So what we need to seek is a volunteer accident policy that will cover our volunteers. Typically, how could a volunteer become injured is one question that pops up. Those are going to be our people that are doing setup and tear down, right? Hanging up signs. Well, oftentimes people will use a box cutter, cut signs down. Unfortunately, they can cut their hands. They'll need to get stitches, go to the hospital. That's something that the volunteer accident policy will cover. Okay. The other items that many festivals will look to is cyber insurance. Again, as we continue to progress throughout the years, there are new insurance policies that are derived because of new exposures. One of the exposures is unfortunately cyber. So if you guys are storing any information, credit card information for people purchasing tickets, you're going to want cyber coverage. The other item is drone coverage. A lot of people often don't think about this, but no one should be flying a drone over your festival unless you know about it. Okay. There is no drone coverage within your general liability policy. If a drone so happens to fall out of the sky, hit a patron, there's not going to be coverage in a general liability policy because aircraft is specifically excluded from the general liability policy. So it's a very good practice to go ahead and contract that out, whether it's a marketing company and you want to get those good shots of your event from high above. Make sure they have drone coverage. Okay, make sure they get permission to fly the drone as well. Those are just some of the common policies aside from rain insurance or event cancellation insurance that other events will look at as well.
Yeah, many, if not most of the festivals that we work with have volunteers and staff riding on golf carts. Where does that fall?
Yeah, so golf carts, a lot of people think of that as auto coverage. It's not auto coverage. Golf carts are a non-conforming vehicle, right? They're not licensed for the road. So it's not going to be covered on an auto policy, but it will be covered in some instances on a general liability policy. Unless you specifically ask for it, it won't be covered. And it's a good point that you bring up, Mike, because one of our largest exposures that we see associated with claims in the industry are golf carts, unfortunately. And again, it's not by you yourself. It's by someone else that's driving it. It could be a vendor who's transporting ice, is transporting a keg, a stagehand who's transporting equipment, and just so happens to run into someone or run over someone with that golf cart, or even hit a vehicle. I can't tell you how many claims we receive when they run it. How do you hit a vehicle with a golf cart? People are they just don't care sometimes. So really important to make sure you have that coverage.
Is there any way of determining a level of coverage that a festival would need based on the size of the event, smaller event versus the larger ones?
It's a great question, Mike. So big or small, insurance doesn't discriminate. Okay, whether you've got 5 people or you've got 500,000 people. What you want to look at is the exposure, right? You want to look at it. What do you have on site? Whether it's a fireworks company, you've got a carnival on site, you're selling alcohol. If you're going to be having volunteers help your organization, do you have a security company that you are hiring, or are you going to be doing the security yourself using your volunteers? So it's a very convoluted answer, and I can't give you a straight recommendation, but you literally have to assess all the exposures that you have. But again, it doesn't discriminate. You can literally have the same coverages for a very small festival against a very large festival as well.
Yeah. One of the things we talked about was, just some of the more common claims that you see among your clients. So could you just run over a couple of those for us?
Sure. Number one is going to be trips and falls, right? One of the things that we thoroughly enforce to our clients is take a look at the venue before you guys open up, right? There should be somebody walking around, whether it's the parking lots that are paved asphalt. Those paved asphalt parking lots will have divots, I promise you. They will have some eroded spots, some potholes that perhaps when it's low lit or maybe it's at night, people are not going to see those. They're probably looking at their phones. They're too busy posting something on social media, and they're going to trip over that. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you have to be cautious of the trip and falls. The other thing that we see are golf cart claims, like we mentioned earlier. Super, super important to make sure that you have an extensive golf cart training enforced at your event, but also have a check-in, check-out procedure, right? Who's driving the golf cart? Is it labeled? Can you identify it if it's in an incident? And what I mean by that is it your golf cart or is it a vendor's golf cart? Major impact on what happens with a claim. The other thing that we're starting to see quite often is ADA compliant claims. Okay, we've seen this a lot in California a few years ago. Basically, it's discrimination amongst the disabled, right? We have to ask ourselves, the clients have to ask themselves, is a venue allowing someone with a disability to come in, and will it be compliant for them to go to the restroom, right? Will there be ramps for a disabled person? Is parking accessible for ADA folks? Is there seating at a stage, right, for ADA specific individuals? These are some of the things that are ingrained. If you go to a sports facility, you're going to have that parking. You're going to have specific seating. You're going to make sure that there's accommodations for people with disabilities. Unfortunately, it becomes an afterthought for festivals that are produced from the ground up, from a regular space. So we're starting to see a lot of ADA claims pop up due to discrimination amongst people with disabilities.
Yeah, and it's important too for our festival fair rodeo producers to make sure that their vendors, stage sound lighting, everyone has policies, has coverage. I know the vendor policies are even more important now, and I'm not just talking food service, but it's being required to have your folks selling merchandise to have insurance as well, because you never know, they may start a fire, their generator, something may happen there. So that's an important factor.
You're exactly right, Mike. And more importantly, we're going to see mom and pop vendors who don't normally carry insurance. They don't do the circuit around the country, being a vendor at certain festivals. And these are the folks that may not remember that they need to stake a canopy, hang a sign correctly. And in result, what's going to happen is a sign's going to fly off, or a canopy, a tent is going to fly in the air after a gust of wind, hit a patron, and hit a car. So it's important to make sure that they have insurance in place and that they list you as additional insured.
Yes, always. So we've covered a lot of territory here. Is there anything you can think of we may have missed?
Yeah, I want to say that the education component for insurance for a festival is going to continuously evolve no matter what. Okay, it's never going to stop. So it's extremely important to make sure that you surround yourself with someone who is very familiar with the industry. And what I mean by that is new exposures are being recognized every day. One of the things that we're seeing that's happened more frequently is active shooter events. Specifically, they're going away from not only hospitals, schools, but they're entering into our space, right? Unfortunately, the fairs, the festivals, the carnivals, and we as the festival producers need to make sure that we not only know how to react, but more importantly, have coverage in place. Mm-hmm. There is, what you'll find now is that there could be specific exclusions in general liability policies that have a firearm exclusion. So if they have a firearm exclusion, an active shooter incident would not be covered. And that's something that you want to make sure that you would have a separate insurance policy for, especially for something that could be a pretty substantial claim that could be brewing here in the future.
Yeah. Well, one thing I know, if anyone wants more information, they could reach out to you, obviously. But the Texas Festivals and Events Association, the IFEA, and over at TAFEA as well, have regular workshops during their conferences, and we would invite folks to come to those and sit in. And again, the educational aspect, you can never be too well educated on any of this.
100%. And get your CFEE certification, just as you have, Mike, Certified Festival Event Executive. I can't stress enough how important it is for people to be familiar with what they're doing in the festival world. Yeah,
and even through the Texas Event Management Institute that you can enroll in and get your certification there as well. So, you can reach out to any of these organizations, and they'll be willing to help you on that. So I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with us on Festival Soup today, David. So I guess we'll see each other in November at the annual conference of the TFEA, and look forward to it. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Mike. I look forward to seeing you soon, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's all for this episode of Festival Soup. We hope you enjoyed our tasty serving of festival insights and advice. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you the best content in the industry. For more tips, trends, and updates, visit our website at www.festivalsoup.com. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, great ingredients make for a tasty festival soup. See you next week.